In the 1980s, a little change to how pensions are managed crept in under the radar. With 2020 hindsight, it will probably condemn most of the population to poverty in their old age. Will you be one of the victims? Latest estimates put the population of London at just a tad under 8 million people. How many of them do you think woke up this morning and said, "Never mind the shopping, the football, the pub, today I'm going to do some financial planning"? I'm not a gambling man, but I have the usual number of fingers and toes, and I suspect there'll be more than enough to count today's volunteers willing to spend some quality time thinking about their financial future. We've never lived so long or been so wealthy. You don't believe me? Well, here are two facts you should be aware of. 50% of all the people in human history who've ever reached the age of 65 are still alive today. 80% of the wealth in the UK is in the hands of the over 50s. The good news is we're all living longer. The bad news is we're all living longer. So what does this mean for pension provision? When they introduced the first old age pensions exactly 100 years ago, there were a few shillings a week given to men who reached the age of 70. And since the average working man died at 48, that was not a big burden on the exchequer. By the time my grandfathers retired in the 1950s, the pension was paid from an age of 65. Their average age at death was 64 and a half, so again the cost was manageable. Fast forward to my father's generation and the story starts to change. He lived to 76 and my mum into her mid-80s, so suddenly there's a 20-year period that needs to be covered. What saved them was defined benefit pensions based on the concept of superannuation, where you earned a 40th of your final salary for each year that you worked. So if you put in 20 years, you retired on half your final salary. And at the time, they bitched and moaned about it. Today, most people would donate an arm or a kidney for that level of retirement income. Then comes my generation. When the concept of defined contribution pensions was introduced in the height of the Thatcher boom years in the 80s, I don't think any of us really understood the significance. But the difference compared to defined benefit schemes is profound, and not in a good way. Like many political decisions, it had unintended consequences. First, the intended consequence. It's let companies off the hook for providing a prosperous retirement for their employees. As you're probably aware, most final salary schemes have been closed to new joiners for years. What's happening now is they're even being changed for existing members. You rarely hear now of organisations being dragged down by a pension funding gap. They simply change the scheme so they can get out from under the liabilities. But that's not what I want to complain about. It's the unintended consequence that I regard as a crime against the people of this country. And I accuse successive governments of every political stripe of the same crime. They've created a situation where each individual now has to take ownership of their financial future. But they've done nothing to provide the financial education needed to enable people to take that important responsibility. An entire generation is now entering the second half of their life hopelessly unprepared for what lies ahead. They don't have enough assets to support them in later years, nor have they saved enough. Nor have they paid enough attention to how their savings are being managed. People start to get concerned about their financial position in their mid-40s, and they become worried as they turn 50, and that moves towards blind panic by the age of 60. Some have been ostriches for many years, head deep in the sand as they spend everything they earn and harbour vague thoughts about downsizing their home to fund their golden years. Others manage to save but have no sophistication in their investment decisions, so they keep their cash under the metaphorical mattress, and sometimes it pushes the mattress so high they bang their head on the bedroom ceiling. So the question of the week is, are you an ostrich or a headbanger? Just use the comment box under the video to tell me how you intend keeping body and soul together when you retire. You're in the right place to take control of your financial future. As my American business mentor keeps reminding me, the best way to help the poor is to make sure you don't become one of them. And remember, be careful out there. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss my weekly episodes. Also, what else would you like me to cover? Let me know in the comments section down below. And finally, if you know anyone who's on the same wavelength as you and I, be sure to direct them to this channel. Thanks for your support, and I'll see you next week.